everyone, it's Sauce, and I just got back from finally taking a wilderness first responder certification. I took a hybrid version through Knowles, which consisted of 45 hours of online module before the in-person portion, which was 5 full days with 2 night sessions. Overall, I felt it was totally worth taking this course. I feel so much more prepared to deal with situations that could come up in the backcountry, both major and minor, and also it prepares you to prevent situations, regardless of what version you take or who you take it through. I think a woofer course or a wilderness first responder course is a great resource for anyone who spends extended time in the backcountry. That said, I was super curious to see how it affected my typically pretty ultralight mentality. Specifically, I wanted to see how much my first aid kit was going to change after taking this course. This is of course not medical advice. You should take a course of your own before making any decisions about your personal first aid kit. I'm just sharing what works for me and how things have changed since taking the course and what I'll be doing moving forward. I'm also framing this in the context of a personal first aid kit. If I was going to be doing any sort of guiding or anything like that, it would probably look a little bit different, be a little bit more robust. This is just what I'm comfortable carrying with situations that I think I could help with or situations that I think are most common to arise for me. For context, my first aid kit before was pretty minimal, but I am proud of some of the items that I already had in there. First up, I'm going to be talking about everything for wound care. My method before was basically to carry gauze pads and leukotape, and I think I'm going to continue doing that. That seems to align pretty well with the things that I learned in the course. I like having the gauze pads to be able to cover larger wounds and also to cut them down for smaller issues like padding over a blister bandage. It's more versatile to me than carrying a bunch of different sized band-aids, so I prefer it. And I find that leukotape in gauze sticks a lot better than traditional band-aids anyway. Obviously, I love my leukotape and I will be keeping that in my first aid kit. It sticks so much better than anything else I found. I've talked about that before. The only thing I would consider here is potentially carrying one other type of tape just in case someone is allergic to leukotape. I have heard of that before, so that's something to keep in mind. Something else I have had in my kit is just like a few band-aids for when I'm feeling lazy and don't want to cut up my gauze in leukotape. Like if it's a scrape on my leg or something, it doesn't need to stick as well because it's not dealing with that friction of the shoe, and I will keep doing that. Also, I only have one in there right now and I probably need to add like 1 or 2 more. Alcohol pads are another thing that I will be keeping in my first aid kit, good for just like cleaning off a scrape or a blister before you put tape over it. If you clean your skin with alcohol pads first and let it dry, it'll also make any band-aid or tape stick better. Something that I was carrying that I will be swapping is this triple antibiotic ointment. I learned in my course that people can be allergic to a single type of antibiotic, so it makes more sense to just have a single antibiotic ointment. That way, if they're allergic to one of these 3, you could potentially still give them the single, but basically it just reduces the chance that somebody would be allergic to one of the antibiotics, and then that way you're more likely to be able to use it on multiple people. Another essential piece that I'm keeping is my mini Swiss Army knife. I use this in the little mini scissors to cut up the gauze and leukotape that I put on any kind of scrape or wound or blister. And then this also has little mini tweezers with it, which is a very handy piece of gear to have in a first aid kit. I can't find the safety pin that's supposed to be in here, so need to replace that, but I also will be continuing to carry a safety pin. Mostly I use this for draining blisters, but it's also good to have in case of like a backup repair need. It's also tiny and light, so kind of a no-brainer. Things I'm gonna be adding as far as wound care are wound closure strips. They're super tiny and super light and would make closing a bigger laceration a lot easier than taping gauze. So that's something that I definitely think is easy to add and not a big deal weight-wise. I will also be adding transparent bandages. I realized that those make it a lot easier to kind of tell what's going on with something. You can, close the laceration with wound strips and gauze and then put the transparent bandage over so you can kind of keep an eye on how much bleeding is still happening or whether or not something is getting infected. So transparent bandages seem like a good additional bandage to have in a kit. I will also be adding nitrile gloves. I'll probably keep like a whole box of them at home and then just have 1 pair or 2 pairs in my first aid kit. And this is mostly so I can be ready if I ever have to help someone else. But I do have a friend who got frostbite on his finger and uses the nitrile gloves now for when he goes fishing and is like in the cold water a lot. It keeps his hands dry and a little bit warmer than they would be otherwise. So I think this is a great like also backup kind of emergency item if like I didn't pack gloves and all of a sudden it's getting really cold and I need something to keep my fingers dexterous. So it kind of serves a dual purpose there. Something else I'm going to be adding is a 12cc irrigation syringe. It works really well for everything from small scrapes to bigger open clean wounds, especially when there's debris in there. An irrigation syringe is like the best thing you can use to clean wounds out. I think that's obviously a little more sanitary than like squeezing out of my water bottle. I guess that would work in a pinch, but an irrigation syringe is super light and small, not bulky. So I'll be adding that to my first aid kit as well. Next, let's talk about medications. A lot of these I'm pretty proud I already carried. There are a few I'll be adding. First up is the most obvious, probably a staple in every thru hiker's first aid kit, and that is ibuprofen. Obviously this is used for like pain management primarily, but it can also reduce inflammation if for some reason you need that. And I don't plan on leaving my ibuprofen at home anytime soon. Next is diphenhydramine or Benadryl. This is sort of a keep but swap. I am personally not allergic to anything, but I still carry this as a precaution in case of coming across someone who's having an allergic reaction. It's so light to just carry a few tablets, but also it doubles as a sleep aid. So I think it's kind of an easy thing to have just in case. What I will be swapping is getting diphenhydramine that doesn't have the pink dye in it because people can be allergic to that. So I'll probably just get like a generic version that is not colored in any way. Something else that I will continue to carry is Imodium, which is an anti-diarrheal. It can really come in handy if someone is having some sort of stomach bug, if somebody gets waterborne illness like Giardia and is having a lot of diarrhea, it can help them stop that and hopefully retain a little bit more fluid while you hopefully get them out of the backcountry. And that's something that I think will be really helpful to have on hand in case that situation ever arises. It can also be handy in situations like as simple as food poisoning. I have been carrying 325 milligram aspirin and I will continue to do so, but also add some 81 milligram tablets. I've always carried these just in case I run into someone who is having a cardiac issue, and I learned in my wilderness first responder course that 325 milligrams is like a full dose, and some people who are on maintenance for their heart will take like an 81 milligram dose every morning. So if someone's already taken that, you don't want to give them another full dose. Again, not medical advice. This is just what was my understanding from my course. So having some 81 milligram tablets would be good just in case something like that occurs. You could also use it for pain relief, of course, and fever reduction. A small note that I learned in my course that I do want to pass along is that a lot of people call the 81 milligram doses baby aspirin. And this is a huge misnomer because you never want to give aspirin to a baby. It can make them deaf. So I just want to clear that up in case anyone out there didn't know that. Do not give babies aspirin, and probably maybe just refrain from calling the smaller doses a baby aspirin. Just call it an 81 milligram dose. Some medications that I will be adding. One, I plan to add glucose tablets for any sort of diabetic emergency. Again, something that's super light and easy to carry and could be really handy in a pinch. And it's something that can make a really big difference in the backcountry if you have it. Another thing that I'm gonna add that I can't believe I didn't already have is some sort of antacid like Tums. I got saved by my friend Leslie on the Fifth last year when she happened to have some Pepto-Bismol because I have all sorts of stomach issues. I'm gonna make sure I have that on hand in the future so that I can take care of myself and anyone else. I also wanna add acetaminophen or a Tylenol as another pain reduction option. Just having a variety of options I think is never a bad idea. And you can actually give Tylenol and ibuprofen together. So in case something is super painful, it's kind of nice to have both. Of course, don't give medications to anyone if you don't have enough information. Learning how to administer over-the-counter medications is something that they cover in a wilderness first responder course. So be sure to take one if you feel like you want to be able to help in that way. Some miscellaneous items that I already had in my first aid kit are aqua tabs. They're great when you're filtering water from a source that you think might have viruses, like a really bad cow tank or something like that, because most water filters don't filter out really small viruses. I like to double treat in situations like that and for peace of mind. So I'll be keeping these in my first aid kit. Another thing that I always carry are extra tampons in case my period or somebody else's period catches them by surprise. These are a nice dual purpose too because they can be a great little fire starter if you need it. The kind I use are obviously super light and not bulky, so I just feel like it's a really easy multi-purpose item to carry. Some miscellaneous items that I'll be adding is an emergency blanket. I actually already had this one before I left for the course because I realized as I'm getting more into trail running, I just want something in case of emergencies. If I happen to get stuck, I don't want to be completely without anything to help myself. It's great for a variety of different situations, and of course it's super light, so I think it's kind of an easy thing to add to a first aid kit. Another thing I'll be adding specifically because of the wilderness first responder course is a patient assessment system printout so that I can kind of remember all the things that I'm supposed to go through if I come across a situation and I need to help someone out. I don't want to like make mistakes or kind of not being able to remember what I was supposed to do in a given scenario. So I'll probably have one of those with me, probably add like some of the important information that I might forget, like normal vitals and stuff like that. I think that'll just be nice to have because obviously as time goes on, I'm not going to remember as much from the course, and that way I can still kind of practice with that sheet and also have it in case something happens. In summary, I highly recommend anyone who spends a good amount of time in the backcountry to take a wilderness first responder course. It will prepare you to respond and help when any other help may be very, very, very far away. I have been in situations before where I felt like completely helpless, and I'm really glad that now I am prepared and will be able to actually do something if something happens or prevent things from happening. If you have any questions about my first aid kit, please leave them in the comments. I'd also love to hear from you about your first aid kits, any essential items that are must-haves, any things that have saved your butt in the past. Please leave them below. We can kind of crowdsource the perfect first aid kit or take what works for us and leave what doesn't. Thanks for watching. Bye.